This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. I hope the American people can see through this sham. God, I hate to say it because these have been my friends.
Lindsey Graham just turned a routine Senate hearing into a full-blown showdown, and Pete Hegseth found himself in the hot seat. Every cautious answer, every moment of hesitation was shredded as Graham demanded absolutes. By the end, Hegseth was publicly shamed in one of the most brutal moments the Senate has seen in years.
You said that, not me.
Lindsey Graham walked back into that Senate hearing like a man who already knew the script. He didn't need charts or spreadsheets because his favorite weapon has never been data. It's fear. And on that day, he wielded it with the precision of someone who has done this performance 100 times before. What started as calm and polite quickly turned into a full-blown stage show, with Graham in the starring role and everyone else scrambling to keep up.
What you're trying to do is hire people based on merit, right?
Yes, sir.
You could care less if they're libertarian, vegetarian, Democrat, Republican, as long as they can do the job?
Yes, sir.
At first, it almost felt disarming. Graham began with praise. Yes, actual praise. He commended the Pentagon for hiring people based on ability, not politics. He even looked across at Secretary Pete Hegseth and applauded the fact that it didn't matter if someone was Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, or even vegetarian. As long as they could do the job, that's what counted.
More people are joining the military now than any time in recent memory, right?
Yes, sir.
So the situation described by Senator Murray is not being viewed by other Americans because they're signing up in droves.
Senator, there's been a historic surge.
You know why? Because they think you're a winner. They think you're going to lead. They think you're going to have their back. That's why they're signing up.
He called the generals winners, pointed out that recruitment was higher than it had been in years, and said people were signing up because they trusted the leadership.
General Kane, is that a fair statement that the military-industrial complex of the 20s and 30s really didn't miscalculated Hitler?
Yes, sir.
But that moment of optimism, it was nothing more than bait. Graham laid it down gently, only so he could rip it away seconds later. Because almost without warning, he pivoted. He told the generals that the world miscalculated Hitler in the 1920s and 30s.
The guy wrote a book, I Want to Kill All the Jews, and nobody believed him. You remember that?
Hitler wrote a book where he promised to wipe out the Jews, Graham said, and nobody believed him. The cost of that mistake? 50 million dead. His voice carried the weight of catastrophe, and the message was chilling. Ignore Iran today, and we're walking into the exact same trap. To Graham, Iran chanting about wiping Israel off the map wasn't just rhetoric. It was Hitler's book all over again.
The danger of that is like 50 million people get killed. So let's don't do that now. As to Iran, they say they want to kill all the Jews. Do you agree with them?
I believe they mean what they chant. Yes, Senator.
And here's the thing. This wasn't just some offhand reference to history. This was a setup. Graham wasn't recounting the past to reflect. He was building a trap for the people sitting in front of him. By linking Iran directly to Hitler, he forced the generals and Hegseth into a corner. Either they agreed with his apocalyptic worldview, or they risked looking like the ones downplaying another Holocaust in the making.
Sir, I think they've got some agendas for sure to.
Well, is that agenda to use a nuclear weapon against Israel?
Sir, I think they would potentially.
They had a nuclear weapon. Would they use it against Israel? In your professional military judgment.
Sir, I think they'd use it to pressure Israel. I don't know whether they would use it.
Well, is it 50-50, 60-40, 70-10? What is
Sir,
it?
I don't know what the percent.
Well,
That's when Graham pushed things into the surreal. He demanded percentages, not analysis, not probabilities based on intelligence, but raw, Vegas-style odds. He leaned in and asked the generals, if Iran had a nuclear weapon, what were the chances they'd use it against Israel? Was it 50-50? He wanted them to assign numbers to the possibility of nuclear war, as if it were a football spread.
can't be wrong, can you? What does Israel think?
Sir, I think they think they would potentially.
What do you
use
think,
nuclear.
Mr. Secretary? If they had a nuclear weapon, would they use it to wipe out Israel?
I think Israel believes, quite understandably,
Do you believe that?
That it is an existential
Do
threat
you
to their
believe
existence.
that?
Hold on, and then in the hands of the wrong Iranian, a cleric or a radical, that they would seek.
The officials tried to hold the line, but that wasn't good enough for Graham. To him, hesitation wasn't professionalism. It was weakness. Every maybe or we can't be certain only fueled his frustration.
Radical cleric that exists there today.
Well, as of
If
right
he's
now,
not,
yes.
who the hell would be? So I'm trying to get everybody to think, let's don't do what we did in the 30s. They're going to use a nuclear weapon if they get it. Are they trying to build a nuclear weapon versus a peaceful nuclear power program, Mr. Secretary? Have the Iranians been trying to build a nuke?
There are plenty of indications that they have been moving their way towards something that would look a lot like a nuclear weapon.
And this is where Graham turned speculation into proof. By demanding impossible certainty and refusing to accept nuance, he created his own conclusion, that Iran would use a nuclear weapon.
China intend to take Taiwan by force if necessary.
We don't believe they've made that decision yet, but certainly if you look at their exercises that they're performing in that area, they
What do
look
you
a lot
think,
like
General
what that would
Kane?
look
Do you
like.
think China is intent on taking Taiwan?
Sir, I think it, not to split hairs, but I think it depends on what you define take. I think if.
I mean, like, take it over.
I think if they could get them their way, for sure. Do I think they're going to use military capability? Maybe, maybe not. Do we need to be prepared for that? Yes.
Okay.
After exhausting Iran with his Vegas-style nuclear odds, Graham didn't slow down. No, he pivoted straight to the next domino, China and Taiwan. The question he slammed on the table was blunt. Will they take it by force, yes or no? He bulldozed over every careful answer like a steamroller. Hesitation in his eyes was proof that the threat was immediate, imminent, and unstoppable. He painted a world where China wasn't just testing boundaries, they were preparing for a full-scale takeover.
Is Putin going to stop in Ukraine?
I don't believe he is, sir. I think he'll
What do you
go
think?
until.
What do you think, Secretary? Is he going to stop?
Remains to be seen, Senator.
Well, he says he's not. I mean, you know, this is the 30s all over. It doesn't remain to be seen. He tells everybody around what he wants to do.
Then came Russia. The generals offered the standard measured answer, remains to be seen. And Graham didn't just scoff, he mocked them openly. Remains to be seen, he said. Putin already told everyone what he wants. In Graham's framing, Russia wasn't a negotiable actor with shifting goals. It was a juggernaut barreling through Ukraine, unstoppable unless America intervened aggressively.
Sir, I think there are still folks that would do America harm.
So is ISIS dead?
No, sir.
Is Al-Qaeda dead?
Mostly, and dying more every day.
Yeah, but are they still out there trying to get here?
Yes, sir, to a
So
certain
the
extent.
threat of radical Islam is still real to the American people?
Yes, sir, if allowed to scale. We
Yeah.
work hard to not allow that to happen.
And how you do that, you hit them over there before they come here, right?
As if that weren't enough, Graham decided to resurrect some old villains. He shifted to radical Islam, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other extremist networks. The generals admitted the obvious. These groups were weakened, not eliminated. But Graham wasn't interested in fine distinctions. Fight them overseas before they fight us here, he thundered, echoing post-9/11 mantras with the urgency of a man who sees shadows everywhere. In Graham's world, enemies didn't stop at Iran or China or Russia. They stacked endlessly.
As to, final thought, as to Russia, China buys and India buys 70% of Russia's oil, Mr. Secretary. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
If they stop buying cheap Russian oil tomorrow, would that grind Putin's war machine to a halt?
It's a vulnerability. Yes, sir.
Then came the moment everyone was waiting for, Graham's brutal turn on Secretary Pete Hegseth. Earlier in the hearing, Hegseth had been praised for upholding meritocracy in the Pentagon. Now that praise was weaponized. Graham was the alarm bell, ringing louder and louder, while Hegseth was cast as the man too timid to hear it. The contrast was brutal and perfectly theatrical.
Is there a whole lot of difference between a nuclear weapon in the hands of Al-Qaeda and the Ayatollah in Iran? I don't think so. They just have a different religious reason to do it. The point is these budgets are important, but we need to up our game. We need to build more ships because China's building more ships. So we need to hit the enemy before they hit us. We need the ability to project.
And then came Graham's prescription: budgets, oil, and battleships. He demanded massive increases in military spending, more ships, and greater power projection. China and India were next on his list, slammed for continuing to buy Russian oil. In his view, the U.S. should threaten to cut off access to markets unless they fell in line. Graham's worldview was simple but extreme: punish adversaries, pressure partners, escalate everywhere, and do it immediately. Iran wasn't just hostile. He labeled them religious Nazis.
In
Excuse
political
me, Mr.
power for the last
Hegseth.
4
Let's
years,
just stop. Let's just
priorities
stop. Let's
other
just
than
stop.
By the end, the hearing was less about nuanced strategy and more about a constant drumbeat of urgency. Graham stacked threats like dominoes, weaponized history, shamed allies, and demanded budgets that could only be justified in a world perpetually on the brink. It was dramatic, it was terrifying, and it was masterful theater. And at the center of it all, Hegseth had been caught in the crossfire of a Senate performance designed not to explore solutions, but to signal to the world that America was surrounded, under siege, and needed to escalate before it was too late. In less than an hour, Graham had moved the room from optimism to apocalypse. Meritocracy became a trap, nuance became weakness, and caution became a liability. From China to Russia, from Iran to radical Islam, every threat was immediate, every hesitation unforgivable. And through it all, Hegseth became the human yardstick against which Graham measured courage, or the lack thereof. It wasn't just a Senate hearing. It was a brutal lesson in fear politics, with a spotlight squarely on the man who didn't measure up to Graham's version of urgency.
We have an ability through legislation to get China and India's attention that if you keep buying cheap Russian oil to empower Putin to kill Ukrainian children, you're going to lose access to our markets. I would urge you and the administration to use that tool to get the attention of China and India. I'll end with this. We're not going to evict every Russian from Ukraine.
Beneath all the theatrics, there was one glaring absence, a real strategy. Graham piled on Hitler analogies, ticking nuclear clocks, and expansionist villains. But nowhere in his performance was there a careful, nuanced plan for navigating today's complex global challenges. Every threat he described, from Iran to China to Russia, was framed like World War II waiting to happen tomorrow, turning the hearing into what some might call panic theater. Diplomacy, subtlety, and calculated restraint were treated as weaknesses, replaced by black and white battle cries and impossible demands for certainty. The real question lingering over the room: is this actually making America safer, or just ratcheting up recklessness?
I'm a practical guy, but we got to end this war so we don't entice China to take Taiwan, and we don't encourage Iran to think we're just all talk and stopping their nuclear ambitions.
And then there's the audience Graham was really speaking to. It wasn't just the generals or Secretary Hegseth. It was the world watching outside those Senate walls. Every Hitler reference, every insistence on yes or no answers, every pointed question about nuclear odds was designed for cameras and headlines. Graham wasn't shaming Hegseth because of mismanagement or poor policy. He was shaming him for not fully participating in Graham's fear narrative. The Senate room was just a stage, and Graham's goal was clear: position himself as the lone warrior sounding the alarm while making everyone else look timid. Strategy mattered less than optics, and nuance was sacrificed for drama. By the time the hearing wrapped, the lesson was unmistakable. Fear is a powerful tool. It rallies, it motivates, it silences critics. Like this video, and make sure you subscribe to the channel to get more updates.